GTA 6 is officially confirmed. The release window is locked by Rockstar, so instead of wasting time on fake countdowns and recycled speculation, the real question worth answering is why Rockstar has been unusually quiet about the story itself. Because for a studio that normally drip-feeds narrative hints, GTA 6's marketing is aggressively vague, and that silence is not accidental, it is structural. Because when you analyze everything Rockstar has shown and everything they have deliberately avoided showing, a very specific pattern emerges around Lucia, her past, and the kind of crimes GTA 6 is actually built around, and it immediately separates this game from the usual rise to power GTA arc, since Lucia is introduced not as an ambitious criminal, but as someone already broken by the system, starting the game inside prison rather than climbing toward it, which alone flips Rockstar's usual storytelling order. And when you combine that with environmental storytelling clues pulled from the leaked map data, the controlled access zones, sealed coastal facilities, off-grid compounds, and restricted islands that are not designed for casual exploration, it becomes clear that GTA 6's core narrative is structured around information control rather than money. Because large-scale cash heists leave visible economic ripples in the world, but data theft, identity manipulation, sealed records, and illegal custody systems leave silence. And Rockstar is a studio obsessed with silence as a storytelling weapon. And this matters because Lucia's character design, animations, and emotional framing consistently avoid greed-driven motivation. There is no obsession with luxury, no aspirational excess, no "I want more" energy. Instead, her aggression feels reactive, defensive, almost desperate, which aligns far more with someone trying to recover something lost than someone trying to gain something new. And this is where the so-called child vault theory becomes less conspiracy and more narrative logic. Because in modern criminal ecosystems, especially those Rockstar draws inspiration from, the most protected assets are not drugs or weapons, but people whose identities have been erased, reassigned, or buried inside institutional systems. And Rockstar has already explored this theme indirectly in previous games through corrupt law enforcement, falsified records, and manipulated databases, but never as a central emotional driver. And GTA 6 appears positioned to make that leap, using Vice City's sun-soaked aesthetic as a mask for deeply bureaucratic violence. And Jason's role reinforces this interpretation, because he is framed not as an emotional equal to Lucia, but as an operational counterbalance, the planner, the stabilizer, the execution layer that allows Lucia to move forward without collapsing under her own rage, which is not the dynamic Rockstar uses for power couples chasing dominance. It is the dynamic that used when one character is emotionally compromised by unresolved trauma. And if you track Rockstar's historical narrative pacing, this becomes even more convincing. Because in GTA 5, the emotional truth of Michael's life only surfaced after hours of chaos. In Red Dead Redemption 2, Arthur's real story did not begin until players were already deeply invested. And in both cases, Rockstar withheld the narrative core until late game, letting spectacle carry the early hours. And GTA 6 appears to be pushing this philosophy further by hiding its central motivation entirely from marketing. Because once the audience understands why Lucia is doing what she is doing, the tone of the entire game shifts, turning robberies into tools rather than goals, violence into consequence rather than spectacle. And the map design supports this delayed revelation strategy, since multiple high-security locations are positioned in ways that suggest late-game access only, not side missions, not optional content, but story-locked progression. And this also explains why Rockstar has shown almost nothing about the game's final act, because the emotional payload is not something you tease safely without deflating it. And if the climax of GTA 6 revolves around exposing, breaching, or destroying a system designed to erase lives rather than store wealth, then the franchise's traditional satire takes on a darker, more grounded edge, one that critiques not just criminals but institutions. And that would make GTA 6 less about becoming untouchable, and more about forcing accountability into a system designed to avoid it. And here is where everything locks together. Because Rockstar does not need to market this twist, they need to protect it, which is why trailers emphasize atmosphere over narrative, chaos over context, and why Lucia's past remains untouched territory. Because once that final layer is revealed, once the player understands what was taken, how it was hidden, and why Lucia refuses to let it stay buried, the entire experience retroactively transforms, turning earlier missions into setup rather than noise. And that is the kind of delayed impact storytelling Rockstar specializes in, not because it's flashy, but because it keeps players emotionally tethered long after the credits roll. And if this theory holds, GTA 6 will not be remembered for its map size or graphics alone, but for being the first GTA where the biggest crime is not what the player commits, but what the system already did long before the game even began.